Just one final one for you. Frenkie de Jong moving to Manchester United. We talked earlier on about Barcelona needing to offload players. It sounds as if he doesn't want to actually leave, but they need to sell. And Ten Hag, by all accounts, is quite desperate to sign him.
Yeah, well, I think my song would be, if Barcelona's deals don't go through, money's too tight to mention, I think, because this is the interesting situation, because I talked about this extraordinary General Assembly they had, and the socios, the members said, yes, we're willing to let these merchandising chunks go and whatever. But those deals aren't in place yet. And so there is all of this uncertainty. There's no point Barcelona selling him unless it's for the right price, because Xavi would want to keep him, I think, in an ideal world. He's a wonderful player. He really is. And I can see why Ten Hag would want to make him the centre point of that midfield. He's a very clever player, can play a couple of different positions. But United, I think, are in this era now where they don't want to get taken for a ride. That seems to be the vibe that's coming from them at the moment. And they're prepared to be patient. But, Ten Hag, it's a big season for him. He's got to start it well. And so he will want, big pieces of the puzzle in place before the new season starts. So I think we're going to see a bit of toing and froing with this one. And a lot will depend on what Barcelona's situation financially is, because we won't know that probably for the next couple of weeks.
You know what's interesting? I've already seen the narrative starting on Manchester United. Every time there's a rumour that Ten Hag has not got a player that perhaps he's wanted, it's like his vision is falling apart already. It's like June.
He hasn't even started yet.
I know, but this is what he's going to have to contend with, isn't it?
Well, I think what we shouldn't forget is that there are a lot of good players there already. I think it's easy to kind of look at some of those appalling performances last season and say they're all rubbish. You need to get rid of all of them, bring everybody else in. Look, he's going to want to make his own signings. De Jong is, as I say, the kind of player they would need. I still think they need a ball winner in there, because that's not really what Frenkie de Jong is. Frenkie de Jong's somebody who's very important in build-up, brings the ball out beautifully. Takes players out the game with his passing and with his ability to go past people, but I still do think you need that glue in there to kind of help him out. He's not going to be able to do it all himself, so I think that's almost as important. So it'd be interesting to see how much they spend, because this is a massive summer for them. We know they've got cash, but I do think they want to avoid this kind of thing that Newcastle are trying to avoid, which is clubs know you've got cash, they know you've spent a load in the past, and so they'll say, hang on, we want a bit more because we know what you've got. So it is important to try and drive that down. So
it's not really just that though, Kev, is it?
Summer.
It's what comes with that, because if they spend big money, look at Harry Maguire, you put a big price tag on somebody and then it doesn't work out, then the criticism just comes in from every available angle.
Yeah, and I think what they've been really poor at, actually, is facilitating those big money players. Because I don't know what you guys think, but I just think Paul Pogba has left the club, and we know that he didn't remotely reach his potential while he was there. But how often was he really used in the right way? How often was he really given a platform in the way that he was given one at Juventus? Now, he's not blameless. I wouldn't say that at all. I think he didn't help himself with, again, some of those international break interviews where he suggested he might want to move elsewhere. But I just think they've got to be a bit cleverer about putting square pegs in square holes, because otherwise it just isn't going to work. It really isn't. There's got to be a kind of wider approach to how they do things, rather than, oh, he's a good player, let's get him and then worry about it later.
Well, that's exactly what they did with Sancho.
Strategy.
Exactly, yeah. So you look at Liverpool's recruitment with Jurgen Klopp, he goes and buys players that suit his style and the way that his team plays. Manchester United weren't doing that. The big question as well is Ten Hag's relationship with Cristiano Ronaldo, because is Ronaldo going to be able to play the way that Ten Hag, everybody says he likes to press and he likes high intensity? So that relationship's going to be really, really interesting to see how that unfolds.
Well, a smart coach will find a way. I must admit, I got Ralf Rangnick wrong. I still have an enormous amount of respect for Rangnick. I think he's a very intelligent football guy. I think he's proven that, having built that kind of Red Bull operation, you know, not just in Leipzig, but beyond Leipzig, what he did with Hoffenheim years ago, getting them up the leagues. But I think he found a group of players that just either weren't willing or weren't able to play the kind of football that he wanted to play. And so what you ended up with was this complete kind of halfway house that just didn't suit anybody. So Ten Hag, I think, is going to come in with a lot more authority, but a good coach will find a way of being able to try and get that counter press working with Ronaldo just able to do his own thing and score the goals that we know he can score. So they're going to have to compromise a little bit, but I'm not sure it'll be the Ajax way that we saw. I think it'll be some elements of that, but I think there'll be a bit of compromise along the way.
By the way, have you seen the Pogba documentary yet? Is it out yet?
I haven't seen it yet. No. It's I'm trying to remind the kids who I am over these next few weeks.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, exactly. This is your father, children.
This is my house.
Exactly. He disappears for 10 months of the year. So I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard a couple of the quotes from it, and I was rather disappointed about the suggestion that, wasn't it, the offer of 290 grand a week was nothing or something like that.
Oh, God.
And again,
I can't bear talk like that.
Look, this is where he lets himself down, I think, because I like him as a player. I love him. I think when he's in a structure where he can play, like when he was at Juventus, brilliant to watch. Some of the games for France. I mean, actually, before it all fell apart against Switzerland, he was ever so good in that game. Scored a brilliant goal, looked really good, and then, they got a bit cocky and it all fell apart. But it's just a shame that he hasn't been able to find consistency to match with that quality, because when he's on it, he's a wonderful player.
I think as well, though, again, you get the advice of people around you. There's an astonishing lack of sort of self-awareness, isn't there, really? Because normally if you did a document like this, when you've been really successful, you've had a brilliant season or you've had a brilliant 2 or 3 years, where he, as you said there, he hasn't. He's underachieved and he still has like this documentary coming out. It's like, we'll do it maybe in a year, 2 years' time when you've gone to another club and been brilliant.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more revealing that way, though. Maybe, look at Sunderland Till I Die.
Yeah.
It actually was so successful because of what an absolute nightmare it was behind the scenes and everything else going on. So, maybe he's not particularly done himself any favours.
But I think as a club, when it's a club, you can kind of get away with it a bit more because that's the overall story. I mean, sometimes they're interesting, the kind of behind the scenes thing. But I think some of them, the Griezmann thing, that decision video, that's partially because he's obsessed with the NBA and LeBron James and he just wanted to have a kind of repeat of that. But it was cringe-worthy. It really was.
I find a lot of these things really cringe-worthy. There's a lot of narcissism that goes on in football at the moment. And I think where the social media videos and everybody's got to outdo each other with the announcement video. It's just, can you imagine what Arsenal would have said to you when you signed, Perry, when you just have to do some ridiculous...
Well, no one would have knew where I was. Who's that ginger kid they've just bought from where? From Colchester? George Graham, you wouldn't have been allowed to do anything like that whatsoever.
But it's so important in today's modern football, or people think it is anyway, in terms of branding, commercial deals, and followers and stuff like that. But oh my God, sometimes I watch it just going, it is utterly ridiculous. I've been privy to being behind the scenes when the players do their goal celebrations pre-season with behind the green screen, and some of the things that they're made to do, and it's so funny. Some of the players absolutely love it. Others are just like, I'm not doing that. No way. Because it's just... Anyway, maybe we're getting old, perhaps. Kev, always a pleasure to talk to you.